Hello and welcome back. In this lecture, we will be looking at database products that are offering from Microsoft Azure portal and the options that we can use of each of the product. We will be looking to it. Now, if I go back to Microsoft Azure portal and go to all services, and then I do have here databases. So I have 19 different products which are available. Or if I go here and choose all, and if I search as database, so I would be able to see here some of the products. So you see here there are products are listed like Cosmo DB and SQL database. So such things are very important and we are going to look into it. So to begin with that, as a first one, we would like to have a look on Cosmo DB. Now, Cosmo DB is the newest offering in the list from the Microsoft Azure and its most popular one, isn't it? And it is nothing but there's no SQL database service. When I say no SQL database, it means that no SQL means that exactly it does not use the relational database model like other products do, like SQL Server in your maybe on-premises, or if we talk about in cloud as your SQL services do. Instead, it's more like a document database. Perhaps you might have heard something called MongoDB or other databases that uses no SQL. That means there's no relationship. So let's jump into what are the bullet points and how we can connect. So if you look at here, Cosmo DB can connect with these three of different mechanisms. So we'll talk on that in a minute. Azure Cosmo DB is a globally distributed and multi-model. It means that it's a platform as a service offer from Microsoft Azure. This is Cosmo DB and will automatically handle whatever the scaling you wanted, even across multiple regions. That's why we call it as the globally distributed, and this is one of the main nice feature of Cosmo DB. Well, your data is replicated across many regions in the world, and because of that you should almost never run into a case where you lost the data, because even if your old data center goes down, your data still exists in at least one or two different regions and that are still up, and because of that you never lose your actual data. So that could be a big benefit for mission critical data or applications to get this kind of built-in scalability across multiple regions. Now, when we say multi-model, it means that Cosmo DB supports multiple APIs or multiple ways to you can query your data, and you can get into use that's a familiar like SQL or structured query language syntax that most of the people who worked with relational data are familiar with. You can use similar kind of APIs that use the Azure storage or your Azure tables uses. For those who are familiar with the MongoDB database, that's nothing but a document database, you can write queries the exact same way as you would use a MongoDB with Cosmo DB. So it's almost a similar way you can write up, and you can call the Gremlin API, which is based off your graph data. And in fact, the Facebook uses the same thing. And also you can use the table storage, as I said, MongoDB. All these are the APIs which are supported. And we also talked about the PaaS model, and it is capable of auto scaling across multiple regions. These all are the multi-model. It means multiple different ways of querying your data, which is helpful because you might have people with a different skill set on your team. Maybe some people are familiar with SQL, maybe with MongoDB also. Maybe also some of them are Azure Storage, and they can also call Cosmo DB by picking up APIs that they wanted to use it. Now, in addition to all these, Azure Cosmo DB also supports analytics by using Apache Spark, and we'll have a look on it, Spark, in a little bit more in the upcoming videos. But Apache Spark, just to tell you that it will let you connect to the data source, in this case Cosmo DB, and run big queries that can do against huge data sets of getting analytics and reports, other kind of data mining information out of your data. And having natural ability to write these Apache Spark on top of Cosmos DB makes it more helpful before those analytics kind of thing or comes into your scenarios where you can use the Cosmos DB to pretty well for the features database. And it doesn't use their relational model to non-SQL or NoSQL. So just if you want to summarize about the Cosmos DB, so what exactly Cosmos DB? Cosmos DB is a non-relational database model. So there's no SQL and it is globally distributed, auto-scalable across many regions, and it supports many different APIs and analytics via Apache Spark. Overall, a great choice for a new development in the cloud, for migrating older apps to less expensive option like Azure Cosmos DB is a less expensive compared to your some of your SQL options that we'll look into it in the next. So now, with the SQL database, you have the two offerings Microsoft SQL offers. One would be the infrastructure as a service. That means you go ahead and you would install in a VM the SQL server. Like if I just open up this portal or Azure portal, I can go here and search for the computing. Here maybe a SQL. Oh, like if I just search with a SQL, so you see here Azure virtual machine, which is coming with the SQL. So that means the SQL also will be already available within that. So I can choose in such a way. So that would actually create me a new virtual machine with the SQL option. Let me show you what I'm trying to say. If I just go to virtual machines and try to create a new virtual machine here, simply I choose my whatever the resource group and I can browse here all the available images. Within these images I do have here database section, so that means all these databases also available, but these are some of them are third party. But what I'm talking is here I can talk about the SQL here. So if I just search for the SQL, I can have a SQL server with the 2012 configured with the enterprise edition, for example, on a 2012 server. So such kind of configuration or SQL 2019, 2017, all that are the possible options I can choose it. So you see here on a Red Hat Enterprise Linux, we're gonna install the SQL. So or maybe standard Red Hat. All these are the options that are available on my SQL server. I can configure as an infrastructure as a service. So that's what we talked. So on a VM, you can have VM along with the that's the operating system along with the SQL is already installed, pre-configured for you. Or you can install, you can spin up, think about it in this way, you can spin up a VM and you can install SQL Server. So nothing stops in that way also. So you can have that option also. Now, other one would be the platform as a service model. So it means that you can go ahead and spin up the SQL database engine with the more elastic pool options and other options you can configure. So let me show you what I'm talking here. So if I just go to the platform as a service model or to have the databases like a SQL database, I can just go here and check for my SQL database. That means it's going to be a PaaS model. So I simply have add a server. That's gonna adding a server in the cloud in Azure, and inside that I can have multiple databases. Think that you have a server and you can have multiple databases. Similar thing can be done. Like I'm just creating here like demo GB for AZ900. So that should be unique. Again, the name, so it's there, and I can spin up here like with the giving the name. In this case, I'm just giving here a admin logon name and create. So that's gonna actually create a database for me, and validation is failed. If I just go back here, Asia Pacific, this location is not available for me to subscribe. I can go back and check out my West US, which is I should have the permissions in that. So it's going to ask me all other options like the networking and other options. So it's going to create for me a database, and I can connect from my machine by simply connecting to a PaaS model. You see here it's completed the deployment, and then the next step would be I can connect to this server directly if I have SQL Studio Management is already available. So in this case I have already SQL Studio Management. I can simply go to the resource and check on this. So you see here the SQL Server is configured within this, but now but there is no databases, so I need to create one database. So this is where I'm going to create within that server one database. I'm going to create, like, think that you have one dedicated server. Within that you're creating a databases, like you can have multiple databases. So I'm just creating here demo DB for my app1, maybe application one purpose. So it's going to be a blank database, and this is into my demo AZ 900 server, which is going to host this. And if you want elastic pool, so it's going to actually charge some additional charges with the elastic pool. Like if you just configure here, this is what I'm talking about, the codes and other things you can customize. You see here, if I just go to the my elastic configuration pool for the new pool, and it says that the basic would be the two virtual cores or 32 GB. If you want more CPUs, you can expand like this, and the GB of the RAM also going high-end. You can configure, actually this is your memory for data max use can be configured on the local storage space. And as you configure here, it's actually getting configured as per the elastic pool configurations, and the charges would be applied according to that. So you see here, you can go for 20 cores, 40 cores, whatever the cores you wanted, and it would be charged based on the V core. For example, just for the cores, you can simply configure based on the 40 cores. So that's going to configure for me 40 cores with the 340 GB of data maximum can be configured with the log space allocated 91 GB. So this is the pool capacity of what you can configure, but this is just the general. If you're looking for the business critical, again you have the generation configurations what you can configure here. So these are the FSV2 or M series or general 5, generation 5, generation 4. All these are the possible options where you can choose your configuration. So based on that you can configure, but some of them are, it's not immediately available. So in that situation you need to raise a case to make it available with the Microsoft, or you can talk with Microsoft if that's really available in your region. So I'm just selecting generation 4, and now with generation 4 I want maybe with this, so it's going to charge me this many INR, but if you try to do it, it's going to tell you in the USD also. If your database, if you're getting charged with the USD, it's going to charge. So this is the pricing information which we can talk at a later point maybe, but the pricing is based on a DTUs. So DTU is again a dynamic method which would talk about like database transaction unit based. Like you see here, when you increase the computing performance, it actually comes into either DTU model or core model. So within these two models you can configure based on your requirements. So in my case I'm actually configuring very little less because I don't have much balance here. So I'm just say I don't want these many cores, so I just wanted here very less with the general, maybe because it's heavy the pricing. So it's going to be, this is the pricing what I'm going to charge. That's okay. I can click on apply. That's gonna charge, and I can give here name as this is Gen 5 which I'm using with the two vCores vCPUs. That's a power, and then click select. That's gonna create for me. And collation, you can choose here the collation model and simply click OK. So in my case I have chosen that. It's gonna spin up a database in my server. So the server is, in this case, it's the under resources, right? Everything is categorized or under that resource group. So in this resource group you have the server which was created by us for the SQL. This is the SQL server name, and within this the database is getting created. So if I just go here somewhere here the databases, so I should be able to see that database which is getting created. So in this case I'm just going to the database, SQL database, and this is where it's gonna spin up in a minute as soon as it has been spinned up. So here is still going up the database. Once it is created, I should be able to connect by giving here the required connection credentials by clicking and connect to the database. This is where I can give the whatever the connection details it's gonna give us that we can use and get it connected. So this is the pass mark. You see here that the database is created, so I simply have to close this, and if I just go back to the database once again, I should be able to see here one database, that's a DemoDB application 1 specific, and this is the database. I know that I can currently it is not used. There's a 32 GB and 16 MB. All this information I can simply configure, and I can configure even geo redundant also. Let's say currently it is into West US. I wanted to configure for Australia example. I like maybe this region also to be configured. So Canada, this is going to be configured in the Canada Central. So I can configure here and spin up one more. So it's going to create a secondary database in that location. So that might not take much time. Let's see, I can create here in Canada. Demo is 900. So it's going to be create here, and for the login credentials, I'm just giving here password, all that information. So it's gonna create in that location. So it's just creating the server there in that location, and the readable in this case, and target server, and same one, same kind of configuration. I just click on OK. So it's going to spin up. So what would happen is, you see here from Canada till to the Canada, it is actually making a relation. Now similarly, if I just go to maybe here in the Australia location, like Australia South, so this is going to be again a configure. It's going to configure in that location. This location is not available for my subscription, but otherwise I should be able to do it. So if I just go to the Brazil location, so one more it's going to create in that location as a readable. So that's where it's going to create one more readable one. So if something goes wrong, you will have the database in that location too. So these are the highest availability regions and other things you can configure. In this case, you see here now the data is also getting to replicated to all these locations. So you see here it's coming to Brazil as well as the Canada. So two locations, the same data is getting replicated in a geographical a replication which is happening. And if I want to connect from my PC, so what would happen is, actually I didn't told actually about the pool option. So let me talk about the pool option. So if I just go to my databases, my Azure, so you see here I have the database here. So this is the database server. Within this I have only one database, so I can configure multiple databases here within this. So this is the database which is connected, or which is available on the SQL server, which we hosted. Now within this database, within this you can have DTU quotas can be set, or you can configure your required databases so that it can automatically take care of this processing power. So in this case it's just the SQL database 1. So this is what exactly my SQL database server. Within this I have one database, so I can have multiple databases, and I can elastically say that, hey, if my one of the database is needs more DTU power or processing power for that specific query or that specific database execution, you can elastically share that configuration, share that power of your CPUs, share that power of your RAM. All that can be shared within these databases. So it's a pool supported, right? So that's why we call it as elastic pool. Now I just go to my database, and if I want to connect to this, you see here connection string is available. So if I just click on here, so this is the SQL connection. If I try to connect from any way of my password with my ADO Connect, but if I just use the JDBC or ODBC, all these are available here. Or if I just go to my PHP, I can use this code, so it is readily available for you. And also I can connect, this is my server. For example, you see here this is a server name, so I just take this and open up my here I can see server name, I can enter, and now I wanted to enter my SQL authentication specific login and password. So in this case the user ID is this, so I'll simply say, and I would give my password here. So that would actually connects to that SQL server. So it's saying that, hey, you need to sign in. it is identified that, hey, you are actually trying to connect from Microsoft Azure portal. You need to sign up. So I can simply sign in. So that's going to sign for me. Enter my user ID and password. I have to just enter my password, so that would actually connect. It is authenticating with all that information. Click on OK. That would actually connect my SQL Server automatically. Now I'm actually connected to my SQL, and the connection you can see here, it's gonna pop up in a minute or so. And the icon is, if you see here, it's a blue database. That's nothing but your Azure database. So I have connected to this database, and I can query whatever the data I want to do it. So this makes it so easy to connect to your PaaS model, and you can start using with your connection models that are available within the Microsoft Azure database connectivity. And you see here the replication also gonna happen. All that, it's so easy for the PaaS model. Now if you see here, the geographical replication was completed. That's why you have this option. So if something goes wrong, you can readable from this location. I can change if I really wanted to. You can force to failover. I can do that simply. So it's going to actually failing over to that location. So in this case, Canada is going to fail over. So this becomes as a primary, and these two becomes as the secondary, just for the read only. So this is how you can in a minutes of time, you can play with your databases, you can create, you can configure, you can give that complete power of Elastic, and you can do the replication. I'll just wait for a second to complete this and show you. After waiting for some minutes, you can see here it doesn't take much, like 2-3 minutes, because the database is nothing much. Here you see here the Canada become as a primary. Now other two regions become as a secondary databases. So these are the readable, and this is online. That means you can write and read. But our connection was still there, and there's nothing you're gonna lose. So you can get all the information, like I can go for and view all the querying to the entire database and get the information and the structure. So this is so easy when we talk about the database in a PaaS model. And similarly, what we have talked, let's have a review on it. We talked on Azure SQL database, like you have the model infrastructure as a service model. That means you will spin up a VM and you install SQL Server. So you can use your existing licenses also within that SQL. So you get the benefit. So if you try to spin up a VM with which has the SQL, if you own that license already, you can choose that option that, hey, I already own that license, so it's not going to charge you much, so you're only paid for VM specific. And similarly, you can spin up your VM and download your SQL Server from your Microsoft MSDN licensing, or whatever the licensing you have, and then apply that key. So in that situation, you will be completely responsible for the server performancing, auto scaling, all that. But here with the PaaS model, you have Elastic Pool. So Elastic Pool contains your databases, your managed instances, all that, and that power you can give it to your databases. So if any one of the database also needs the more power, it would automatically adjust with the from the Elastic Pool with the DTU power, like a CPU or memory power, and that makes more easy. So these are the advantages when you go with the SQL databases. Now let's have a look on Azure SQL Database, which is another topic. So within Microsoft Azure portal, you do have here the databases. So when you go to the databases, you have the SQL database warehouse. So formerly it was SQL database warehouse, but now it's called Synapse Analytics. So if you look at here, Synapse Analytics is formerly, it has been renamed the name, but in your exam might be getting as a SQL data warehouse, but you need to look at Azure Synapse. So what exactly this is, it's similar to your TSQL Analytics, and you have the SQL pool, you have on-demand services for your database, and you are going to pay for terabytes of the data. You also have here integration for the hybrid integration can be possible. You can check with Spark and Studio. If you are looking at this diagram talks about how it actually manages your databases and other things as an architecture side. So this shows the distributed tables and all that information, how you can analysis with the SQL analytics information with the hash functioning and other options. You can also do the replication, other things. So if you are looking for Azure Synapse Analytics, it's currently into the preview. You can start filling up this and you would be able to get connected, but in the future it's directly available like we have here now. Directly it is available, and you can simply go ahead and spin up that data warehousing option. You can simply create data warehouse. This option, it's going to actually create similar fashion that the way we create the SQL server and then the SQL database. Similarly here, the first SQL server, and that's a data warehouse server here, and then the databases which is gonna come up here. So that all gonna happen in a minute or so if we start creating it. And this is the limitations of the pooling and other database links. I'm gonna link up these things within the this video. So let's jump into the actual session of the Azure SQL data warehouse. So what exactly this is a very large amount of the data that is designed to hold just little bit differently than your regular database. And the idea with the data warehouse is that you're going to have a huge amount of data, and that's you are going to always to keep adding to that same data as well as. So you might have a variety of data sources like your applications and some of internal application like CRM or ERP kind of stuff. And if you see the data wherever it is coming, like maybe a social media or from your devices, all that, or maybe for that matter Internet of Things also, the data may be coming up, and you are actually adding to that data into your database. I mean, you might have lots of different sources of data, and the idea with the big data solutions is that you take in all this data and store it somewhere that's really set up well for storing large amount of unrestricted or unstructured data and different types of data. So this unstructured data would be now stored into something like Azure Data Lake Store. So now that you do from this to run analytics services, a variety of queries, even machine learning against your data, so that you get the a kind of an output that you are looking for it. And where the data warehouse comes into the right here at the end, once you have taken all this different data and stored it somewhere as is a staging area, and then performing some kind of operations on top of your data, usually left with the results and with these queries, and that's what the data warehouse service can do for you. It's basically a cloud-based data warehouse. So you can have when you actually run or when you get from different sources the data, when you wanted to run some kind of query, it actually runs a parallel processing. So each process takes a simple processing time, and the data would come for you later point by joining the results. So it's a very quick, and complex queries also can be run across petabytes of data, and you get the output in the easiest way. So this is very useful for the big data solutions, and artificial intelligence on top of it you can run, and you can get some kind of proper information if you're actually looking for data warehousing solutions. And that concludes about the Azure SQL data warehouse. And let's jump into the Azure database migration services. So database migration services are easy, and it enables for you seamless integration, seamless migration from multiple databases. Or its source you can choose as a database, and then it can migrate to Azure data platforms with a minimal downtime. This can be done in an offline migration plan or maybe online migration. So when you look for the offline application, definitely goes for the downtime when the migration starts. Actually, when you talk about the online migration, the downtime is very limited. When you actually cut over, time only would take over, otherwise it would normally work. So now let's have a look on how the services works. So if you just go to the all services type for migration, you have under databases Azure database migration services. So this is where you can create your migration services, lift and shift kind of thing, where you can migrate the services. Like I can choose here, and this is, if I look at was US2 and I wanted some kind of service name like migration service demo example. choose the resource group and create, and this is where it's gonna ask me for the networking. So I can choose here the available network name, demo, and create. That's gonna create a network name, and once I validate it, it's gonna start the deployment. And that would actually take a minute or so to complete this migration services to be added to our dashboard, or maybe to our services. So this is where it's going to come up, and then we can do whatever the services we wanted. So if you look at here, you also have the hybrid. So that means you can also do these services can be run from the on-premises machine, and this is from the Azure service mode. So you can configure the number of premium or maybe standard. It all depends on the pricing. Like you see here, the 4 cores or 5 cores. You can choose what core is right. If you just go here, it's going to talk about the core specific services. So if you have a more cores, it actually gives you more processing power. And you see here, if it is a SQL or RDS SQL as your SQL DB target, or if you're trying to migrate from MySQL to Azure DB for MySQL, then these are the targets are supported. And you can check out here the premium, all that options, and once you have chosen here that specific service, you can right click and create by giving here the name. So in our case, we just created a service with the demo which we just created, and it is actually on the way. It's gonna execute in a minute or so. So that would actually create a migration service under this in a minute or so. The services are still provisioning. In the meantime, I can go and show you a good website which can guide you very well. If you can open datamigration.microsoft.com, which is a Microsoft site, and you can choose here any kind of database as a source. Let's say I wanted to migrate to Azure SQL database from Oracle, then simply have to choose this, and it's going to give me step-by-step instructions within the 3 or 4 different phases. You see here, these are the steps I need to migrate. I need to work on it, and then I'm gonna do this way. These are the steps which talks about all these step-by-step instructions, and then you can simply go ahead and migrate it. So the actual migration would start here from the synchronizing all that. So it's so easy if you're actually looking for a migration services and you want to run it directly. So let me show you other one we shown for the Oracle. Now for the SQL to SQL, that's Microsoft, then I can simply choose here Azure, then what are supported, what not supported, and you need to look at the steps, each of them, and once you follow these steps, then go to the pre-migration, access and assessment, convert, then go to migration step. So this is where DME and other migration activities you would be looking into it, then sync it and cut over. As a post-migration steps, you can perform it. So it's so easy. If you're actually looking for any kind of migration services, just go back to this specific URL, that's datamigration.microsoft.com. It would really helps you, including the Cosmos DB and other all the databases, including the access to SQL also made it easy, and SAP to SQL, all that options you have here. I hope this is useful for you. And if I see here, yeah, it's just provisioned. So let me, DMS is provisioned. Now if I just refresh, yeah, I got this. And this is where the migration services are there. I can configure my migration services, and I can enable here and then start migrating the required services like new migration project. And I wanted to migrate from here. The source is the SQL. If you have the SQL database, or you have a SQL or AWS, RDS, whatever the database as a source, you can choose that. Let's say I wanted to choose here AWS, then it's going to choose for the target is Microsoft SQL database, and I need to fill the online as a create a project, and then I can do here either project automatically, or premium SKU is to be created, but I have not created as premium, so this is not this service is not available. So I can choose here SQL to SQL, and then I can simply run this by giving a project name SQL to SQL. So you need to go to this website and whether this is really supported, what is the path, and then I need to go to this specific service and SQL to SQL, and then I can type here, so it's going to actually create that specific service in a minute. It's going up, sorry. It's going to run that. So SQL to Azure SQL database, it can migrate. So it's going to be a new project, and I onboard once the project, then it might ask me to build a portfolio kind of thing. What's that? SQL Server is where it is, the source is available, and whether you're gonna authenticate with the SQL or Windows authentication and the target, and you can map the database, and you can complete the migration. So this is how you're gonna actually use the migration services which are available on the database migration specific. I hope this is useful for you. Thank you for watching this.